In this video, we're going to set up some of the JavaScript to actually make clicking on our clickers and auto clickers do things, and we're going to add the JavaScript to make the auto clickers actually click every single second all on their own. The first thing we need to do though is just get our clicker working again, because right now when I click on this, it doesn't do anything. This will make the score go up, click here, but clicking on this won't let us buy a clicker even if we have enough score to do it. So we need to figure out why that is, and that's a good opportunity to bring up troubleshooting and how to find things that are broken. Troubleshooting is basically like being a computer detective, and so you've got to find out what's going wrong with this code. So right now, I click on this button and it does nothing, and I thought it was going to do something. The code to do it should be right here. It should be this event listener right here, where when we click on buy, we add another clicker and our score goes down by 10, and then we update our values. That's where it should be happening. So let's see if we can find out what here isn't working. So when I read through this, the very first thing I run into is document.getElementById by. So the first thing I would check is, well, do we have something called by on our page? And we used to have something called by on our page, but remember, we changed around a lot of how this worked. And so now when I'm looking back at my page, I actually don't see by on any of these. None of these things have the ID of by on them. So what we need to do is add a by ID to something, but we also have to think of what we want to add it to. So last time we had it on a button, but this time to buy a clicker, we want to have to click on the image to do it. And so the thing that should have the by ID, the thing we should check if it's clicked on, we should check if the image is clicked on. So the image should have the ID by. So if I go to my image here and I stay inside this little closing angle brace, I can type in ID and by. And now this event listener here, is going to look for the thing called by, which is right here. It's this image, and this image is linked to this cursor. And so then anytime I click on this image, it'll try to buy it. Now we don't have enough score. Oh good, it still didn't work. So we have to figure out something else is wrong in here. Now we changed around a lot about how our HTML worked, and one of the things we changed is how we show the number of clickers we have right now, because now it's this ×1 and ×0 thing right here. And if I look at the IDs for ×1, we're supposed to be updating the thing called clicker and setting clickers equal to clickers plus the actual number of clickers. But what I actually want to be changing now is this ×1. Instead of clickers, I want this to be times, and then this will print out the number of clickers we have right now. And we don't have anything, again, we don't have anything on this page with the ID of clicker. What we want to have the ID of clicker is this paragraph right here, because this is what we want to update. This is what we want to show. This is the part here, this paragraph, this part right here, is what we want to show the number of clickers we have. So now if I update it, and I click a couple times, and I click this, there you go. They all update. Awesome. So now we can get clickers again. That's good. That's a good start. So now that we have our code working again, we can start building this auto clicker. And so the first thing we're going to need to do for the auto clicker is we need to give the image, the auto clicker image, an ID so that the JavaScript knows when the image is clicked on. So the ID is going to be equal to, you can name it anything. I'm going to call mine auto clicker. Now that we have the ID auto clicker on this image that shows our auto clicker here, now we can actually find it in the JavaScript. And so in the JavaScript, we're going to say document, just like before, .get element by ID. And the element that we're going to get is called, remember we just called it here, we just called it auto clicker. It's the second image, it's auto clicker. Auto-clicker. And then we're going to say .add event listener, because again, we're going to listen for a click. Yeah, the event we're listening for is a click. And then you're going to remember to put a semicolon right at the end of here. And then inside of here, we're going to say comma, and then a function with 2 parentheses. And here we go. Now we're inside of our function. This is just like we did up here. It's very confusing syntax, but basically what's happening, we get the thing called the auto clicker from the HTML, which is this image. We say whenever that image gets clicked, whenever that image is clicked, we're going to listen for it. And once it's clicked, we're going to do all of the code inside of this function, in between this curly brace and this curly brace. Everything inside of here is going to happen. This reminds me of a step I missed before. We also need a variable in the JavaScript called AutoClicker, because right now we don't have any way to track how many AutoClickers we have. So I'm going to say let auto underscore clicker equal 0, because we start with 0. All right. So now back in the event listener here, back where we're listening for the click, when it is clicked, the first thing we have to do is check if they have enough score to buy the clicker, because if they don't, we don't want to let them buy it. So we're going to say if, and then open and close parentheses, and then inside this if statement, we're going to say if score is greater than or equal to whatever our price is. So I set the price at 100 clicks. You can set it to whatever you want. 100 is probably a little low. So if our score is greater than or equal to 100 clicks, then what do we want to happen? Well, the first thing we want to do is have AutoClickers go up by 1. So AutoClicker equals AutoClicker plus 1. Like that. Now we'll have one more AutoClicker, but there's some more things we have to do. We also have to take away from their score. We have to subtract 100 from their score because they just bought an AutoClicker. So we'll also say score equals score minus 100. So let's see real quick what happens if I get enough score to do this. So now I have a high enough score to buy the AutoClicker, but you'll notice if I click buy, it looks like nothing happens. But it only looks like nothing happens. Actually, things did happen. It just didn't update the HTML. It didn't update the actual page. It only updated in the JavaScript. So if I click something that makes it update, because remember, right here, these parts where we got the document and we set the text of it equal to something, this is where we actually update and show it to the user. Otherwise, it's not going to show up on the page. If I click something that updates it, you'll see actually it did subtract that 100. It just didn't show us right away. We want it to show us right away. So we're going to say document.get element by ID. Get used to typing that. Happens a lot. And the element we're going to get, the first one is the score, because the score is going to change. So we'll say score text dot inner text is equal to, and then whatever we want to set the inner score text equal to. So it's going to be just like we did here. So we're going to say score plus score. So this is the word score, that's what shows up here, plus the number score, whatever our score currently is after we've subtracted 100 from it, which is what shows up here. The other thing we need to update is the AutoClicker number, because right now it's going to say we have 0. And even if I buy one, here I'll show you real quick. Even if I buy one, now the score will update, but it's still going to say we have 0 here, and we should have 1. So we also need to update how many AutoClickers we have. And to do that, the first thing we need to do is give this paragraph here an ID so we know which one we're trying to get to. So I'm going to give it the ID of AutoClicker. Great. And then in here, there's going to be a problem here. Here's the problem. I can't give this paragraph the ID AutoClicker and also give this image the ID of AutoClicker. That's a big problem because then the computer is going to be confused which one I mean. It's not going to know which one I want to update or change to. So these are going to have to be 2 different IDs. This should be something like, we could call this AutoClicker-text. That would be an option. So now in the JavaScript, I can say document.get element by ID auto-clicker-text, and then I can say .inner text equals, and this time we're going to keep that x is from right here, so we'll have the x print out, and then we're going to say plus, we're also going to print the current number of AutoClickers we have, our variable AutoClickers, which is right here. So we're going to say auto_clicker. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Clicker. And a semicolon. There we go. So now, if I play the game for a minute, now if I buy an AutoClicker, everything should update. But of course, we're still missing the part where the AutoClicker actually does something interesting, because right now the AutoClicker does nothing. So let's change that a little bit. So what I want to do in the AutoClicker is when I get an AutoClicker, I want the AutoClicker to, every single second, I want it to click for me. I want it to click automatically. Every second, I want it to do a click. So here's what I'm going to do that. I'm going to use something called an interval. And it might be a little confusing to look at. Just follow along and you should get the idea of it once we've set it up. So the code to create an interval is called set interval. And an interval is basically just a thing that's going to run every however many seconds we decide. So every 1 second it'll run, for instance. And the set interval is going to have two parts to it. The first part is going to be a function. It's going to be a set of code that we want to run. So just like we did the functions right here, just like we have a function here for our click event, we're also going to have a function in the set interval. And everything in between the curly brace here and the curly brace here is what's going to happen when this function runs, when this interval runs every single second. So everything between this curly brace and this curly brace is going to happen every second. Inside of this function, what we want to happen is we want a click basically to happen every single second. And so in this function, we're going to put the same code as if we clicked on the click here button. And what happens when we click on the click here button is this code right here, these two lines. And so we're going to take these two lines and put them into our code that will happen every second if we have one of these auto clickers. So that's going to look like this. We're going to say score equals score plus clickers, just like up here. So if we have 4 clickers, it'll increase our score by 4 every single second for each auto clicker we have. We also need to update the score so that this actually displays, because we don't want this to just happen in the background and not show the new score. So we're also going to say document.get element by ID, and then in here we're going to put the score text, and we're going to say .inner text is equal to, and again it's going to be score, right, just like we have here, and then plus the variable score, whatever our actual score is, the number that the score is. The other thing we need to do to make this set interval function work is tell it how often we want it to actually run. And so we want it to run every single second. But JavaScript doesn't listen to things in seconds. It listens to things in milliseconds. That's what it understands. And so there are actually 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. And so we're going to tell it how many milliseconds until it has to run again. So if we want it to be every second, 1 second is equal to 1,000 milliseconds. So we put 1,000 here. So every 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second, it will run. So we should have enough here to now test if this code actually works. So if we refresh this, and give me a minute to get enough score. And now if we click on one of our auto clickers, you'll see now every second the score goes up by however many clickers I have. If I get some more clickers, it'll go up by more. So now it's going to go up by 6 every second. And that's pretty cool. And we can still click ourselves to get more if we want. Now if I add another auto clicker, it'll just keep adding more and more auto clickers. And so now twice every second it'll add the score. If I add another, now 3 times a second, and 4 times a second, and 5 times a second, and it'll get faster and faster the more we buy. So there you guys go. That is the fully functioning clicker game with even an auto clicker, everything you could ask for. If you've gotten this working, you've done a great job, because like I said, look how complicated this code is. This is so complicated. Oh my gosh, I didn't learn this for years. I'm trying to teach it to you guys right away. I'm crazy. So if you guys can actually figure this out, that's amazing, because I know college students who can't figure this out. Once you've done this though, what I want you to do is add your own new piece to this. So maybe you can add another thing called the super clicker or something. And maybe the super clicker makes things update like by every half a second. So that would be like 500 milliseconds would be half a second. So try adding another thing on here that does something a little bit different from what we did before. If you need help and you're not sure how to do something, go back and watch one of these videos, but watch it and try to follow it along for adding a new element if you just need to remember which steps happened, because there's a lot of steps happening here. So if you need to remember which steps to do, go back and rewatch a video, but instead of doing one of the elements we already did, try to add on your own element to it. That's a great way to learn how to code. And always remember, if you're getting stuck or you're confused about something, I'm always in the room. I'm there to help you guys, so let me know if you're having trouble and I'll come help you out. This is very hard stuff to do. Real quick, I do want to say, coding is a hard thing to do, and there's a reason that almost nobody knows how to code. Believe it or not, struggling and being frustrated and trying to figure out and understand why things are working, that's what makes you better at coding. That's what makes you good at it. Everyone else quits when they get to that point. If you want to learn, you have to push through that part and keep going. And that's what will make you a great coder. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been great. I don't know what I'll do for the next tutorials yet. We'll have to see. You'll have to give me some good suggestions. I'm not sure what our next set of tutorials will be. Let me know what you want.